Welcome to The Joyful Life, the podcast for finding true happiness in every aspect of your life through spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental health. I'm your host, Anthony LaJoy, and thanks for joining us for another episode of exploration into personal success. All right, everyone, welcome to another week of The Joyful Life. This week I have Dr. Bob Fortosis on the podcast, so Dr. Fortosis, welcome to the Joyful Life podcast.
Thanks, Anthony. It's great to be here.
Yeah, pleasure having you as well. As we talked a little bit, you have a very extensive background, and I think that's quite interesting for the listeners on, when they're getting started in life, especially the younger listeners. When we get out of college, sometimes I think, this is speaking from personal experience, you can get out and not really know exactly what you want to do necessarily. So, having someone of your expertise kind of speaking to that, I think is super helpful. For those of you who do not know Bob, he has an extensive background in education, quite a bit, as a head coach, a director of athletics, several significant committees in the NCAA, as well as different career administrator and things of that nature. I kind of want to just have you talk about yourself a little bit because you can tell your story better than anybody else. So why don't we just kind of give a brief overview to everyone of kind of what your story is,
okay,
what your passions are, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Glad to.
Awesome.
I was raised in Asheville, North Carolina, where my father was the headmaster of a private Christian boarding school for high school students and catered primarily to missionary kids. And so I kind of grew up in a really unique type campus. Went to play soccer at South Carolina for a year, and then transferred to Wheaton College and graduated from Wheaton. Right out of college, I actually the way I got my first job out of college, I had no idea what I was going to do. In fact, I don't remember even wondering during my senior year in college what I was going to do. I don't know what I thought I'd end up doing, but I was walking by my head coach, soccer coach's office one day, and he said, "Hey, Bob, come in here. I just got off the phone with somebody, a president of Montreat Anderson Junior College down in North Carolina, and they're looking for a soccer coach, and they called me. Do you want the job?" And I said, "Sure, yeah." So, I from not even having an idea what I was going to be doing, I ended up as a head coach at this junior college in the mountains of North Carolina.
It's beautiful there too.
It's just gorgeous.
I guess it's probably kind of a plus.
Yeah, well, it's pretty near where I grew up. But I was in Black Mountain, North Carolina. My starting salary was $7,600 a year and dorm room. I had to manage the dorm. I was a dorm director, and
okay.
I could eat in the cafeteria for free. So that was, I was living large in those days. Got out of there a year later. One of the guys on my team, his father was an administrator at Geneva College in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh, and liked what I had done my 1 year there at Montreat with his son's team, and brought me in to coach in Geneva at Geneva College. Was there 2 years, and in my mind at that point, my dream job, I thought I'd end my career coaching soccer at Westmont College in Santa Barbara. I just thought Westmont was the premier small Christian college in the country. I still think that they are. Mm-hmm. And I thought maybe when I'm 40, super old, would maybe get lucky and land that job. And all of a sudden I heard that the coach was retiring after all these years and the job was open. I thought, no one ever leaves that job. I should apply. Mm-hmm. So I applied for it and got an interview, and I called my old college coach and I said, "Hey coach, I'm applying for the Westmont job. Would you mind giving me a hand and calling out there, putting in a good word for him?" And he said, "That's so funny. Your brother just called me and asked me to do the same thing for him." So it turned out that of all the people that applied, I was interviewing against my big brother for that job.
Whoa, what a small world. So did you
have
any idea?
No idea. He was at the time, he was the head soccer coach at a school in Tennessee called Covenant College. And it was tense a little bit between us.
Yeah,
we ended
of
up,
course.
Our planes crossed, the cornfields of Kansas on our way to and from California for our interviews. And I ended up getting the job because I think I got it only because they could probably get me cheaper because I was younger. But I ended up, that just, everything that I thought, that it would turn out to be a dream job actually was a dream job. It was just a phenomenal phenomenal experience for me. I got to coach some extremely young men, quality young men with great hearts, a little bit of edge to them, a little toughness.
Absolutely.
And I just loved that. And it was great. And then I went from there to the World Cup organizing committee. I left education for a brief 3-year period to help bring the World Cup to the United States for the 1994 World Cup. That was a brutalizing but awesome experience. It beat me like a dog. Hardest thing I've ever done was work for the World Cup. I didn't have any idea what the real world was like because I'd only been working in higher education, and it's so safe and cozy there.
True.
When I'm working out in the world and with the World Cup, which is very cutthroat, I learned a lot, and I learned how to be tougher. I remember after about 3 or 4 weeks, just leaving the office, sitting in the parking garage, and almost feeling like crying and feeling sorry for myself, and just thought, man, those people are mean, And then I just felt like, well, I can either be a big baby about this, or I can toughen up and learn how to compete also.
Yeah.
And that was kind of one of the key turning points in my life. And I think it helped me over the years to be a better leader and better administrator, better executive now at WinStar Homes. Mm-hmm. So, when the World Cup's over, it's a great, tough, mind building, spiritually building experience. But everybody's out of a job when the World Cup's over. And so, I found my way back into higher education, but this time not as a coach, as an administrator at Cornerstone University in Michigan, which was nice because my father was there, and I got to be with him in his last years on Earth, which since I went away to boarding school, I had not been with my dad and lived with him since 8th grade. So to be with him and be able to be there, standing by his side, holding his hand when he passed, and be able to spend those last several years with him was just an absolute blessing for me. My dad is the greatest man I've ever known, and poured so much of himself into so many people. He just still is a role model for me and the rest of my family. So came down to Florida when things got a little bit too cold for me in Michigan. Yeah. And had a 14-year run at Eckerd College as the athletic director. And then in the last couple of years ago, a very dear friend who's one of the 2 owners of WinStar Homes asked me if I'd come on board and help them out a little bit as an executive with their company. I just thought it was time, and it was a good opportunity for me to have a new adventure before I hung it up for good and retired. And
absolutely,
it's just been great. So that's sorry for the long run, but I'm old, so, so I have a lot.
Well, you have an interesting life, though. That's the really cool thing, and there's a part of me that is very jealous of people like you who you don't just have one job and stick with it for the rest of your life. Your life is very interesting. You move, you experience new things, you meet tons of new people, which is awesome, I think. And especially in this country, I think we have our states are so diverse. So the different scenery, the different types of people, it's crazy. I mean, even on a road trip, you stop to get gas and you're like, wow, that guy in the gas station was super friendly. That was crazy. And then, 6 hours down the road, you're like, wow, I've never met a more rude person.
Right.
And it's insane how that happens. But it's really cool when you get to experience that in living, and moving to a bunch of different places. So I think that's incredible that you're able to do all of that stuff, and
Thanks.
have so many experiences. So I think it's really cool. So I didn't mind the long story at all. You can tell it again if you want. But a couple things you said in there. First of all, World Cup. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I'm just myself really curious about that. What was that like? How did you get into that? I mean, I don't know. That's a very loaded question. I guess I don't really even know where to start.
Well,
super cool.
For those of your listeners who may not know a lot about the World Cup and what it is, it's the world's largest, most viewed sporting event on the planet. It's 1/3 of every human being on the planet watches the World Cup final. It's that big, and it's sort of unknown to us in our country because soccer has not been a major sport along with baseball, football, and basketball, but it's making its way into our country. We have a professional league now, but back then it was still pretty brand new. And one of my coaching competitors, a guy named Steve Sampson, who was at the time the head coach at Santa Clara. I had known him when he was coaching at UCLA, and where I was coaching at Westmont College, we'd play UCLA every year and Santa Clara every year. And got to know, coaches get to know each other. And so Steve left his head coaching position after winning a Division I national championship and to go to the World Cup. And we were having breakfast one morning. I said, Steve, I just can't believe, that you left coaching. I mean, I just thought all of us in coaching, college coaching, just think you're going to be a lifer. You're just coaching and you retire as a coach.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And I was just so curious by that. And he just talked about what an amazing experience it is for him. He's one of the first guys hired in to run it in our country. And so we finished breakfast, and he said, well, aren't you going to ask me? And I said, ask you what? He said, well, aren't you going to ask me for a job? And it never even occurred to me because I was living in Santa Barbara, California. I don't know if you know much about Santa Barbara, but Santa Barbara
a ton. I've been to California.
It's just paradise. I mean, I've been all over this world. I've been to the Middle East, all over Europe, South America. I mean, I would never, if I could live anywhere, it'd be Santa Barbara. It's just paradise. And I was at my dream job, Westmont College.
Man.
And so he said, yeah, why don't you ask me for a job? And I sort of just off the cuff said, sure, give me a job. And 2 weeks later, I was handing in my resignation and joining the World Cup. It just happened like that. And, you mentioned when we were sort of talking before the podcast started about how you choose your path in life and follow, where you're going to work. And, I just think people generally really overcomplicate those decision-making processes. I really believe that, I'm a person of faith, and I believe that if you earnestly want to be where God wants you to be, once that decision is taken care of, then you just follow your want to. Mm-hmm. And if you genuinely want to be nowhere but where God wants you to be, you follow your want to, he'll stop you before you go somewhere that's not in that plan.
Right. He'll put a roadblock there.
Yeah. So it's super easy. People agonize and agonize. I always just say, make sure you're right first with what you want to do, being aligned with what God wants you to do, and then just follow your want to. He'll guide that want to, and he'll open and close doors, and it's super simple.
Yep.
So if you're looking from me to give you, and your listeners a really complex 5-step program and crack open the Bible and give 14 different verses or whatever, I just don't think it's that complicated. Why would he keep it a secret?
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. And that's something that, for me personally, I've been kind of, I think, as like a revelation to me. It's been like, you know what? It's not so hard as what I'm making it. Because you see everyone around you. I see, my friends around me working different jobs, doing whatever, and they're either, very successful or maybe they're not. But it's very easy to find yourself looking at friends and acquaintances and being like, man, what did I do wrong that I'm not there? Hey, you know what? Not that you necessarily did anything wrong, but maybe it just isn't your time yet, right? So and that's something that's really, manifesting itself to me. But I think that's the simpler the better, really, when it comes to, giving advice and that. And I think that's amazing. My mom always used to tell me, pray as if everything depended upon God, and then work as if everything depended upon you. Yeah, she's very smart. So, Mom, if you're listening,
both parts are critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of what you're saying as well. I mean, if it's not in your cards, then there'll be a roadblock there, and you won't be able to do it, and you'll have to go somewhere else. Yeah. Right?
Well, let's, if you don't mind, let me just very as briefly as I can take you through what transpired at each stop along my career path. Because
absolutely, I love that.
And again, it'll reemphasize what you and I are seeing as the reality of this. Mm-hmm. I already explained. I just happened to be walking by my coach's office when he hung up the phone with the president of that college in North Carolina. It's not hard.
Yeah.
And then the second piece, I told you there's a guy on my team at that job in North Carolina whose father was an executive administrator at Geneva College. That was my connection into Geneva. The Westmont job was always I was always on my radar, so that was easy. World Cup, I happened to have breakfast with Steve Sampson, who was a close coaching friend who just went there to join the left coaching. So that was easy. After the World Cup, here's an interesting, I had just gotten married a year, 2 years earlier, pregnant wife. Mm-hmm. I had 3 job offers, one at a prep school in Bend, Oregon, which is an awesome place to live. One to be an athletic director at a university in New York, And I had a couple job offers with the United States Soccer Federation to join them. Turned down. I didn't want to. I wanted to get out of business, get back into education. I didn't want to get into high school education. I wanted back into college. So turned down the USSF. I turned down the Bend, Oregon job. Took the job in New York. Packed up our house. My sweet, precious, pregnant wife and I said goodbye to all our friends, and woke up the morning we're supposed to drive to New York with all of our stuff. Phone ringing, and it's the president of that college in New York saying, "Bob, I'm got terrible news. We lost our accreditation, and we have to withdraw all of our new faculty offers." So I said, "Don't worry, I'll come anyway. Don't worry. No, I'm sorry, but we just don't have a job for you now." And so I had nothing. I had turned down the other jobs. I had a pregnant wife. We'd already sold our house, and we're sitting on the bed, and we're thinking, "Well, what do we do? Where do we go?" I didn't have a job. I was, it was there, so I called my brother in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I said, "Man, we need to come crash there for a couple of weeks so I find a job." And just that we drove cross country with our dog Jake, a beautiful golden retriever who's one of the best people I know. At the time, he's gone now to dog heaven.
Right.
And every day I made finding my job, and within a couple of weeks, I had a couple offers and ended up, ultimately as the athletic director there in Grand Rapids at a university where my father was employed already. So isn't that so? Here I am. So then one day I had a meeting after 8 years there, and my father had passed away, so there's no real reason there to stay. February in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I had a meeting with the president. And he just was sort of not ever really excited about athletics, and it was a battle the whole time I was there, and I was kind of frustrated. And I'm walking back through the snow to my office, and
right.
Bitter cold. And I said, "You know what? I'm just gonna just for my mental health, I'm gonna shoot a resume to the first warm weather college that I see looking for an AD, an athletic director." Open up the NCAA website. There's only one. It's Eckerd College in St. Pete. Shot a resume, got hired there, a couple months later down here.
Wow.
And then, having lunch 14 years later, after being here at Eckerd College for 14 years with one of my dearest friends on the planet, Bobby Gross, who owns WinStar Homes with a partner. And expressing some of my frustrations with the college. And he said, "Well, why don't you come work with me? We got some stuff we can use you for, and your skill set would fit what we need." And so see, it just isn't that hard. Things just sort of open up if you have your eyes open and you want to be where God wants you to be.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Now, with WinStar Homes, what exactly do y'all do there? No,
WinStar is just been an absolute.
You can move
incredible,
that mic however you want. I mean, if it's in your way, if you want to swing it.
Can you hear me okay? Am I good?
No, it's totally fine. I just want you to be comfortable. It's
an incredible experience. It's a great company filled with great people. What we do is we build. We're probably I'm certain we're the premier luxury custom home builder in Tampa Bay.
Okay.
So we build very, very, very high end, very meticulously built luxury homes, and on beautiful settings, beautiful pieces of property.
Yeah.
And my job with the company is Bobby refers to it. My boss refers to it as sort of an air traffic controller. I don't have a construction background, but I do have a leadership background, and I do know how to build teams and build a really positive culture. Mm-hmm. And so there's been a lot of good work to be done there, and I've been there a year and a half now, and it's just been a phenomenal experience. We're busy. We're building a lot of beautiful homes for a lot of beautiful people, and it's been a great move for me and my wife and family. So
that's amazing.
About it.
Yeah, it's super great. A question I had for someone like you who has shaped a lot of lives, and I'm very confident for the better after speaking to you. For you, what would you say were your most formidable years? You mentioned how your father was a very, a big impact in your life. But I guess I was kind of curious what things happened in your growing up and college, et cetera, that really shaped who you became today.
Well, that's
a loaded question. Also,
really complex question. I think growing up in the family I did led by a father and a mother who were just absolutely 1,000,000% sold out to their faith. I think a big turning point was, when I was probably about 8 years old. My mother got breast cancer, and over the next 3 years, five kids. The youngest one was my sister, who was probably 3 or 4 when my mom got breast cancer, and so over 3 years, our all of us kids just watched our mother die in front of us, really. And she was an incredible, joyful spirit, sensitive, warm, full of laughter. Just loved us like more than any mother I know can love their children. But she left, and so my father, as good a man as he was, he did not handle losing his wife very well, and so I think a lot of us kids, I was the middle child and sort of got lost in the shuffle, which is, nothing I'm bitter about. It's just life. It's just what happens. And
Sure.
like you're alluding to, it shaped me, which is good, right?
Yeah. Made you tough.
So, yeah. So, it was an interesting time. I didn't cry, for a long time, till maybe a couple of years later, sort of laying in bed at night. It sort of kind of all hit me. And I had a tough time, expressing emotion, trusting and caring and showing love for people. Kind of troubled, So I was on my own, through high school. My father had left the high school, so I just kind of stayed, moved into the dorm when I was in 9th grade, and he went to be an administrator at a Bible college. And so really from age, 12, 13, I was on my own. Make it home for Christmas. Often my dad lived 2 hours away from the boarding school, and here I was, 13, 14, 15 years old, hitchhiking on I-26 from Asheville, North Carolina to Columbia to go home for Christmas or Thanksgiving. And these days, that would never ever happen, right?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but you'd hope no kid ever tried that either.
Exactly.
That would not end well. But yeah.
Yeah, it was just. Sometimes I just shake my head, but. I've been so blessed. So I think losing my mom was a really big thing. One of the most transformative things was getting married. I haven't spoken about my wife, but I married Felicia 29 years ago.
That's awesome.
That's a
Congratulations.
long time, dude.
Congratulations. That's great.
It's just not for 1 second gotten old. The reason that I decided that I wanted to ask her to marry me was because we had been together and I never ever got tired of her. Everyone else I dated up to that point, great time and fun, but after a while, it wasn't satisfying, it wasn't fulfilling, there wasn't enough substance there. But with Felicia, to this day, I can't wait to see her when I get home tonight.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
She's an amazing person, and one of the things I was thinking about today with her is one of our Christmas traditions is that for 29 years now, I write her a Christmas poem every Christmas, and so I was working on it today over my lunch hour at work, and it dawned on me that it's never hard to write it. Isn't that interesting?
That's awesome,
and that's just really really a credit to the kind of woman she is and kind of mom she is to our children. And one of the things that is included in this year's poem is the way she really shines light into my darkness. I tend to be a really intense, serious person, but she's the opposite, and so it's just like a perfect marriage for us. And we have three beautiful children that are a product of that union. That are the most amazing people I know. They're what I tell people about my 3 children, Jalen, Riley, and Chase, is that they're the kind of people that I would want to just hang out with, even if they weren't my kids. They're just really fun, interesting, smart people to be around. So
that's cool. That's a cool way to put that. I think you hear people talking about their kids and loving their children, which is very natural, but to be able to kind of draw back and look at that from a big picture and be able to kind of see what others see as well and be very objective about it. I think that's got to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't appreciate it because I'm not a father, obviously, but
well,
yeah,
you will. You
oh man, I'm
you do.
excited.
It's going to be
I'm
awesome.
very excited. Someday.
Yeah.
It's awesome. As far as when you were growing up, you've mentioned also that you're a man of faith, which
Yes.
so am I. I think that's a very important aspect in life. We talked about God guiding your path, whatever that be. How was it, keeping your faith, and it probably strengthened your faith during that harder time? But when I look through and see, so many athletes today, even if they are religious, they don't really talk about it. But then a few stand out, right? You have the Tim Tebows,
Yep.
you have the Phillip Rivers. I think that guy's awesome,
Yep.
and they're very proud of their faith. They're very proud to say, "Hey, this is something I practiced throughout college, and if you don't agree with it, if you don't like me, then that's okay. But don't hate on me for it,
Yeah.
because it's what I do."
Yeah.
And I get the feeling that that's very much the type of person you are, kind of a silent faith. This is what, very much it carried you through, I feel like. But I'd like to hear a little bit about that and to, expand on that a bit for the listeners.
Well, it's my faith is absolutely core to who I am. It defines who I am. But the way I approach it is, I don't, I'm not a in your face, beating you over the head with a huge 20-pound Bible type person.
Yeah.
Because how I feel about faith in God is that it's not sort of what you do. It's not about going to church, although church is valuable.
Yeah.
It's not about, a certain set of behaviors that you must abide by, or you're going to be in a lot of trouble someday. I just don't think it's what you do. I think it's just who you are. In other words, it's not a list of rules. It's more about a relationship with a living God. And just like in any other relationship, you like with my wife, or are you married?
I'm not, no.
Okay. When you do, I mean, your relationship has a bit of time where you're getting to know the person, and you're listening to them and understanding them, and they're talking back to you, and you're starting to get an understanding of who they are, and then you fall in love with that person, and because you love them, you want to live your life in a way that's pleasing to them because of that love and that how you've gotten to know them and who they are. And it's the exact same thing with our faith. I mean, you get to know the person of God, and you spend time with him, thinking about things and communing with him in your mind. And as that relationship grows, you think, well, I want to live my life in a way that's pleasing to him. So I want to be a person of integrity. I want to love people. I want to make sure it's not all about me, which is what I love to do, is make everything about me. It's just a natural thing.
It is.
But that's how it's not. I'm not one bit ashamed of it. It's who I am, and I'm embarrassed by it, because in today's sort of politically correct, far left influences in our culture, it's not a cool thing to say the kinds of things I'm saying, because it's exclusionary or intolerant or whatever. But it's it's just who I am. It's not what I do. It's who I am and who I've chosen to be. So that's how I would articulate my faith.
I'm not even going to try to expand on that. I think you said it perfectly. I completely agree. I read an article recently about loneliness becoming an epidemic in our country. 3 out of 4 people, and they talk quite interestingly about it not necessarily being sitting alone in a room and being like, oh, why don't I have friends? It's not necessarily that. It's more of not. I can't even say it the way exactly they did, but basically not having something to work for, not having motivation to do things, and it's all those things coming together. And they speak about spirituality and empathy being main components for fighting loneliness. When you care about others, you think outside of yourself, and now you want to help others, and it makes you happier. And then obviously that spirituality, having that connection with God. And I was very happy to read that and see people are writing about this also. It's not just, oh, if you're not happy with your job, then get a job that's easier,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's quite a bit in our modern society what it's about. And I respect a lot of the things you were saying about how in hard times in life, you just sit there and cry about it. Maybe at later life, it hit you like, gee, that was real tough. Yeah. But it's kind of something that's lacking, I think, in our world today is when you find a mountain, you need to toughen up and get over it, There's no way through the mountain unless you're going to dig and dig and dig and dig, but it just go over the mountain.
Yeah, that's, I love that. That is absolutely critical.
And so I love hearing, folks like you talk about it as well, which kind of leads me to another question I would have, which, what's your coaching of philosophy? There's a ton of coaches out there, that I think are famous for just being very blunt and you need to tell it like it is, and like, hey, we're gonna win the game, and here's how we're gonna do it. If we lose the game, it's because someone missed an assignment. Yeah. And they're like, and I think it's.
Well, this my whole perspectives on intercollegiate athletics and competition in our country and the NCAA. After 35 years in that business, that could be a whole other podcast.
Yeah, we'll have to have you on another time and talk about coaching.
But I'm happy to answer, as short as I can from a philosophical perspective how I look at coaching, and that is very differently than what you're going to watch on ESPN and what you're going to hear from Nick Saban at Alabama. I just think that in higher education and then below, in youth sports, high school sports, and in college sports, we've very, very much lost our way in terms of why we actually have athletics in educational and youth environments. It's supposed to be to use the forum of athletics, the experience of competing and training and pushing yourself through some of the hard things you just alluded to, teaching courage and toughness in battle and self-sacrifice and learning to do things you just don't feel like doing because you're supposed to do those things. All those kind of lessons are the only reason why we have athletics in an educational environment like at UF and like at a Division II school and Division III school and any high schools on down. Now, that doesn't mean you don't care about winning. I mean, if you ask anybody that ever played for me, winning is, we bleed to win. We care about losing and winning. Viscerally in our gut to where it's hard to even speak after we lose. So don't misunderstand me that I'm saying, oh, it's just a game. Let's go out there and have fun. There is zero of that in me. Zero of that in me. But what I love is that the scrap, the blood to win, has to be spilled in order to learn best all those principles that I talked about. So, but the truth of the matter is, in my view, athletics is and the bleeding to win and the excruciating nature of losing is not the end. It's a means to the end of using all those things to build better moms and dads, better better people that work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, people that work at Windstar Homes, people that are better husbands and wives. Those are the things. I mean, does it really, really matter the score of a game from eternity's perspective? No, but what happens in the lives of those athletes on the road to winning that football game, that's what matters, because that has lasting impact. Here, let me tell you a quick story about what when it all sunk into me.
Okay.
Right? I mentioned earlier that my dream job was the Westmont College soccer job. Living in paradise in Santa Barbara, coaching the sharpest of the sharp young men. I mean, our soccer field on that campus was up on a mountainside where the campus was, and you look down the mountain and the Pacific Ocean just lays all out before you. And there were times where I'd stop practice and I'd say, guys, come in here a minute. Just look at this. Just look at where we get to compete. Look at where we get to go to school, where we get to live. So anyway, so my very first day on the job at Westmont, I'm okay. I got to go, figure out what we have for uniforms, what our equipment looks like. So in the basement of the gym, there's a huge, sort of chain link storage unit under the gym with a locked door on it. And I got a key. Went in there to kind of see what we had, and I thought, okay, these are home uniforms, these are away uniforms, these are practice gear. Oh, there's a whole box full of soccer balls. And then I was about to leave, and I saw in the corner there's a huge box, maybe like the size of like a washing machine, big cardboard box. I said, I wonder what's in that thing. So I, all dusty on top, and I lifted it up, opened the top up, and looked inside, and it was packed. I mean, jammed in there, full of trophies. And they're all tarnished and dented. Some of the cups were broken, the handles off the cups. Little soccer dude, a statue on top of some of the soccer trophies were broken off. And in that moment, it hit me. That's what happens to the winning. The winning ends up tarnishing and rusting away in the basement of a gym, completely forgotten. Whoa. But all the things that went into the winning of those trophies, those men, probably in their 40s, 50s, now, they're married, they're dads. All the things they learned in winning those rotting away trophies, they're using that day. But the winning ends up meaning nothing.
So I got to leave it on the field.
That's right, baby.
Dude, I love that.
Let's go play.
Yeah, right. I'm getting chills over here. I think we'll leave it about there for this evening. But I did want to close on a couple things. So I got on because I want to do a little bit of research about you. And I found a couple of comments from anonymous students online. Some funny. Yeah, some funny, and others not funny, very serious. One of them that I found funny, and I didn't write this one down because I kind of remembered to paraphrase enough. When you were leaving, I'm sorry, I don't remember which college it was, but I think it was when you were leaving Eckerd College. He said, I assume it was a he, said, I will miss head coach because I will miss getting thrown off the field by a huge man. And that was all you could tell. It was this dude. He was like, man, this guy kicks us into gear every single day, and they've left it all out in the field. And it's that love for a leader that when they work you hard, you love them, right? And I thought that was funny, though. And then there were a couple serious ones, and I thought these were awesome as well. One said, and I quote, Fortosis is one of the most intelligent, caring teachers I have had, period. And doesn't surprise me. And another one, which I think speaks to everything we talked about today, says, was a great teacher, and despite his intimidating physical appearance, had a kind and gentle heart, really cared for his students.
Wow, that's nice. I didn't know that was out there.
Oh, yeah, it's out there. So for those listening, that's a perfect example, right? You didn't know something's out there. Whatever you do in life, good or bad, it'll follow you. And if you think, oh, if I get a speeding ticket as a 17-year-old with my new driver's license, it won't affect me. Hey, you know what? What if you're running for mayor one day and someone wants to have dirt on you? They'll find a speeding ticket. They'll find anything that you did wrong, right? So don't get in the systems. Live a clean life. Yeah. Spiritual, physical, emotional, mental health. We didn't even get to talk about spiritual and mental health today. So I'd love to have you back on to expand more because you're a wealth of knowledge over here. But yeah, so I wanted to, in closing with that, you're a great guy, and I really appreciate your coming on the show here. If people want to reach out to you, young guys or girls for that matter, getting out of college, they're pursuing a career, maybe they want to reach out to you for some advice, what's the way we can contact you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here.
Absolutely.
I didn't really know what to expect, but it's been really fun to spend time with you and your listeners. Probably best to reach me by email. My email is bobfortosis, Fortosis @gmail.com. And, I would love to, help any way I can. I do have a lot of experience in getting young people into college, athletes and non-athletes. I actually have a consulting business also right now where a partner and I spend a lot of time with young high school juniors and seniors, guiding them through the whole college application process. So I'd love to help any of your listeners with that. I was on the phone today with a father of a soccer player that is trying to get into different colleges, and just wanted to pick my brain about, what about this school? What about that coach? What kinds of things are important, at this stage in our thinking. So anybody can always reach out to me anytime at that email, bobfortosis@gmail.
That's awesome.
I look forward to that.
Fantastic. Well, hey, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in again today. And as always, everyone, if you found this helpful, enjoyable, someone who can benefit from this, obviously we want to affect as many people as possible in a very positive way. So please share it, tell your friends, tell your family, and we'll make a change together. So until next time, stay happy, stay humble, and as always, continue to live a joyful life. Have a great day.